From the very first cry Fatima made as a baby, her life was already written by others. At least, that was what her father Abu Bakr believed. In his world, daughters were born to serve. They were born to sweep floors, cook, and one day, serve their husbands without question. To him, no daughter of his will waste time in a classroom. Abu Bakr was a well-known man in Kano. He owned a busy shop in the big market where traders came from far and near to buy rice and beans. He wore his kaftan with pride, his head always held high. To outsiders, he was a respectable man, a man who kept to his traditions. But at home, his word was law, and his law weighed heavily on his daughter. Fatima's mother, Aisha, had also been raised with the same beliefs. She had never stepped into a school. Her parents had trained her only for the kitchen. By the time she married Abu Bakr, she knew her role well, to serve her husband in silence and to raise her children the same way. When Fatima grew old enough to ask, "Mama, why can't I go to school like Aman?" Aisha always gave the same answer. "My daughter, a woman's place is not in the school. It is in her husband's house." Those words felt like chains around Fatima's heart. Her younger brother, Ahman, was treated like a prince. He was free to make decisions and to pursue whatever he pleased. Each morning, he carried his books to school while Fatima stayed behind to wash dishes, sweep the compound, and cook. And whenever she asked him to help with the chores, their father would roar, "What? A man is a man. Men do not wash plates. Men do not sweep floors. That is women's work." Every word was a knife. Every day felt like punishment for being born a girl. The only light in Fatima's dark world came from her best friend Maya. Maya lived in Lagos, the city that never seemed to sleep. She only came to Kano during school holidays, but her visits were like sunshine after heavy rain. Maya spoke English so smoothly that Fatima sometimes thought she was from another country. Her voice carried confidence. "Fatima," Maya would say, her eyes bright. "In Lagos, there are buildings so tall they touch the clouds. There are jobs everywhere, schools everywhere. In Lagos, even girls can become doctors, lawyers, or whatever they choose." Every time Fatima heard this, her heart burned with longing. She imagined herself walking into a classroom, sitting on a chair with a book open before her. She imagined writing her name in neat letters and raising her hand to answer questions. She wanted that life more than anything. But whenever she asked her father to send her to school, his anger boiled over. "Do you think I am a fool? Do you think I will waste money sending a female child to school? School is for boys. Girls only need to know how to cook and take care of their husbands. Do you need a certificate to make tuwo or zobo?" Those words crushed her spirit again and again. But something inside her refused to die. Fatima believed her destiny was not just the kitchen. She believed she was meant for more. One afternoon, on her way back from the market, Fatima stopped at the gate of the government school nearby. She stood there silently, watching children her age march into their classrooms. Their pink shirts and green skirts shone brightly in the sun. Their laughter floated in the air, light and free. She gripped the rusty gate tightly, her eyes filling with tears. "One day," she whispered, "one day, that will be me." That evening, as she chopped onions in the kitchen, she turned to her mother again. "Mama," she said softly, "don't you wish you went to school?" Her mother's hands paused over the pot. A silence hung in the air. Then, with a sigh, Aisha answered, "What good has school done for women? My parents trained me to cook, and that is enough. Stop thinking foolish thoughts, Fatima. A woman's crown is her husband's house." Fatima's shoulders dropped. Her mother's words carried no comfort. Still, she prayed in her heart that one day, her parents would change their mind. But fate had other plans. On the morning of her 16th birthday, Fatima woke up with hope. Maybe this year will be different. Maybe her father would finally agree to her dream. She spent the day helping her mother clean the house, her mind racing with what she would say when her father returned. That evening, Abu Bakr entered the compound with a bag in his hand. His face carried a rare smile. He handed it to Fatima. She opened it quickly, her heart racing. Inside was a beautiful abaya gown, long and shining with embroidery. Her father looked proud as he said, "This is my gift to you, Fatima." Her lips forced a smile. but her heart fell into pieces. She thanked him politely, but inside, she screamed. This was not the gift she wanted. This was not the education she had been asking for. That night, lying on her bed under the dim glow of the lantern, Fatima stared at the abaya hanging in the corner. Her father had given her, but what she wanted was education. And so, as the stars sparkled in the sky, Fatima made herself a promise. She whispered it so quietly that only God could hear. I will not give up. One day, I will wear a school uniform. One day I will sit in a classroom like my mates. The morning began like any other, but there was something different in the air. Fatima sensed it in her mother's strange excitement when Aisha entered her room with a soft knock. Fatima, get up, her mother said, smiling in a way her daughter could not understand. Today, wear the new abaya your father bought you. Fatima sat up, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. Why, Mama? What is happening? Is someone visiting us? Her mother's lips curved into a secretive smile. Don't ask too many questions. Just wear it. You will soon find out. Fatima laughed lightly, thinking perhaps a cousin from Jos or Zaria was coming to visit. She suspected nothing else. She put on the abaya carefully, its shiny embroidery that made her look older than her age. Admiring herself in the mirror, she whispered, Maybe today will be special. A few minutes later, the sound of a car pulling into the compound startled her. She peeked through the curtain and saw two men step out, followed by a very fat woman. One of the men wore a green kaftan and had a black goatee. His sharp eyes and proud walk gave him an intimidating presence. Before she could look longer, her mother's voice called from the other room. Fatima, bring out the zobo and suya for our guests. Balancing the tray carefully, Fatima entered the living room with a polite smile and graceful steps. She greeted the strangers warmly and set the tray before them. Her parents sat close to the guests, their faces glowing with pride. The warmth in their voices and the easy laughter between them made Fatima wonder what it all meant. Just as she turned to leave, her father's voice stopped her. Fatima, Abubakar said firmly. Look at your husband. The words struck like a bomb in the room. Fatima froze, her hands trembling. She turned slowly, her eyes darting from her father's proud face to the man in the green kaftan. Her lips parted in shock. My... What? She whispered. Your husband, her father repeated with a broad smile, nodding toward the man. Her chest tightened. She stared at the man again. He looked well into his 30s, with a black goatee and eyes that seemed too old, too serious. Her heart dropped. She bowed her head slightly, then turned quietly and walked back to her room. That evening, after the guests had left, her parents called her once more into the living room. She sat silently on the couch, her face pale. What do you think of him? Her mother asked softly. Fatima raised her eyes slowly. Who? Abu, her father said. The man you met today. The man you are going to marry. Her breath caught. Marry? But Baba, I am only 16. He is almost twice my age. How can I marry him? I want to go to school. I want to study. I want to be a doctor. Her voice broke with pain, but her father's face grew harder. Fatima, enough of this nonsense, he shouted. Do you want to bring shame to this family? You were betrothed to Abu when you were 6 years old. It is an agreement between our families. His father is the chairman of this community. Do you know what it means to marry into such a family? The respect, the power, the honor? This is not about what you want. This is about the family. Fatima's eyes filled with tears. She turned to her mother, silently pleading for help, but Aisha lowered her gaze. The silence told Fatima all she needed to know. Her mother agreed with her father. I cannot do it, Fatima whispered, her voice shaking. I cannot marry him. I am still a child. I am not ready. Please, Baba. Her father's face darkened. Do not dare disobey me, Fatima. You will marry Abu. You will not disgrace this family. Tears streamed down her face. She thought of her dream, walking into a classroom with books in her hands, wearing a school uniform. But now, that dream was being buried alive before her. That night, she lay on her bed, her chest aching from crying. The abaya hung silently on the wall, its dark fabric a reminder of the cage they wanted to lock her in. She stared at the moon through the window, her tears glistening in the dim light. "I cannot let this happen," she whispered fiercely. "I will not spend my life as a housewife for a man I do not love. I will not let them destroy my dream. I will fight. Even if I must stand alone, I will fight for myself." The morning was still dark when Fatima quietly carried her small bag and slipped out of the house. Her heart pounded hard, as if it wanted to escape from her chest. She carried only a few clothes. She knew the consequences if she got caught, but she thought of was her dream. For months, Fatima had been saving in secret. Whenever her mother sent her to the market, she hid bottles of zobo under her hijab and sold them to students in a nearby school. The money she made was small, but she never spent it. She kept it carefully, waiting for the day she would need it most. And that day had come. "I will not marry him," she whispered to herself as she hurried down the empty street. "If I stay here, they will force me into a marriage I do not want. I will run away. I will go to Lagos. When I reach Lagos, I will find a job. I will go to school. I will change my story." At the bus park, the noise of drivers shouting destinations filled the air. Women sold cold drinks. Travelers dragged their bags. Fatima went straight to the bus heading to Lagos, her hands trembling as she handed over her money. When the bus finally moved, she leaned against the window, watching Kano slowly fade behind her. At first, her heart was light. She felt like a bird set free from a cage. But as the bus rolled past unfamiliar towns, fear began to creep in. Questions rushed through her mind. Where will I stay? How will I survive in a city I do not know? What if I fail? Still, she refused to let fear take her dream. Hours later, the bus entered Lagos. The city roared like a giant. Cars honked without rest. Street vendors shouted. Crowds of people pushed and pulled in every direction. Towering buildings touched the sky, and bright lights colored the night. Fatima stepped out of the bus, clutching her bag tightly. The air was heavy, the noise overwhelming, but her heart was steady. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the city Maya told me about. This is where my future begins." But Lagos was not as friendly as the stories she had heard. With no family and no plan, she felt small in the sea of strangers. She decided to use part of her savings for a small hotel room, just one night. She needed safety. She needed time to think. As she walked toward the hotel, a loud car horn startled her. She turned quickly and saw a sleek black Range Rover beside her. Its polished body reflected the city lights like a mirror. Slowly, the tinted window rolled down, and a man's face appeared. "Hi, dear," he said warmly. His voice was calm, confident. "My name is Dio. What are you doing out here at this time of night?" Fatima froze. Lagos was big and dangerous. She had been warned never to trust strangers. Hugging her bag close, she studied him carefully. But something about him made her feel at ease. His smile was gentle, his eyes soft. "I am Fatima," she answered cautiously. "I just arrived in Lagos today. I am looking for a job." Dio's eyes brightened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek silver card. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "This is my card. Call me tomorrow. I might have something that could help you." Her fingers trembled as she took it. The card read, "Dio's Bite and Bloom," embossed in bold letters. She looked up to thank him, but the Range Rover was already gliding away into the busy traffic. For a long moment, Fatima just stood there, staring at the card in her hand. Her heart raced, not with fear this time, but with hope. Could this man be the helper she had prayed for? Could he be the door that would open her future, she said. As she walked into a modest hotel, paid for a small room, and locked the door behind her. Fatima placed the card on the table beside the bed and lay down. But sleep did not come. Her eyes stayed fixed on the ceiling, her mind racing. What if he is truly my destiny helper? What if this is the chance I have been waiting for? But what if he is dangerous? She turned on her side and touched the card again. Tomorrow, she whispered. Tomorrow will tell. Fatima woke with hope burning in her chest. She had run away from her father's house, from a marriage to a man twice her age, to pursue her dream. As the morning sun pushed through the thin curtains of her small hotel room, she held Dayo's card tightly. Her hands trembled as she made her way to a nearby call center. Whispering a prayer, she dialed the number. The line connected. "Good morning, Fatima." Dayo's calm, warm voice came through. "I was expecting your call." Fatima's throat tightened. "Good morning, sir," she replied softly. "I have a job opportunity that I believe suits you," Dayo continued. "Can you meet me at my office on the island today? We can discuss it in person." "Yes, sir." "I will be there," Fatima answered quickly, her heart racing. She hurried back to her room, almost skipping on the way. Something inside her whispered that this was the beginning of a new life. She opened her small bag and picked her best clothes, a clean abaya and her hijab. She pressed them carefully, smoothing out every wrinkle. She wanted to look respectful, serious, and ready for any chance Dayo would give her. The journey to the island was not easy. Lagos pulsed with noise. Yellow buses honked without pause. Hawkers shouted over one another. Music blasted from passing cars. The city was wild, but Fatima's eyes were full of wonder. Every step reminded her of why she had left home. She was not running only to escape. She was running toward her dream. Finally, she reached the address. To her surprise, the office was not an office at all, but a five-star restaurant with gleaming glass walls. She walked in carefully, almost afraid to touch anything. The smell of fried chicken and warm bread filled the air. A polished receptionist smiled at her and led her to a waiting area. The chairs were soft, the lights bright, and beautiful paintings hung neatly on the walls. Moments later, the sound of polished shoes made her turn. Dayo entered, tall and clean-shaven, dressed in a suit that fit him perfectly. His smile was steady, not forced. "Welcome," he said kindly, extending his hand. "Please, come with me." Fatima rose quickly, bowing her head with respect. She followed him into a glass-walled office that opened to the view of the bustling city below. Her chest tightened at the sight. So many cars, so many buildings, so much life. "Sit," Dayo said, offering her a chair. He poured her a glass of water. "Tell me about yourself." Slowly, Fatima began to speak. The words poured out like water from a jar. She told him everything, about her strict father in Kano, who believed a girl's only place was in the kitchen, about the older man she had been forced to marry, about her escape before the wedding, and about her dream of going to school. Dayo listened without interruption. He only nodded, his face serious, his eyes steady on hers. When she finished, silence hung in the air. Then, softly, he said, "I admire your determination. Don't worry, I will help you." Fatima's eyes filled with tears. She looked down at her trembling hands, unable to believe what she had just heard. "I will provide you accommodation," Dayo continued, "and you will work as a waitress in this restaurant. When schools reopen, we will talk about your education." It felt like a dream. She wanted to fall to her knees and cry, but she held herself together. Quietly, she whispered in her heart, "Thank you, God." That evening, Dayo took her to his home. The house looked like something from a film. White walls, soft chairs, and the scent of expensive perfume hanging in the air. Fatima felt as though she had walked into a palace. But just as she admired her new surroundings, a tall woman entered the living room. She was strikingly beautiful, stylishly dressed, with a commanding presence. "Honey, this is the young girl I told you about," Dayo said. "Fatima, meet my wife, Aurora." "Good evening, Auntie," Fatima greeted quickly, bowing her head. "You're welcome," Aurora replied with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. That night, Fatima lay in the guest room, whispering to herself, "God has answered my prayers. Finally, my life will change." Yet even in her joy, her thoughts returned to her family in Kano. But she reminded herself, her future was more important. Days passed. Fatima worked diligently as a waitress in the restaurant. She was respectful, hard-working, and polite. Customers liked her, staff welcomed her, and Dio often praised her. Life felt almost perfect. But Aurora noticed. She saw how Dio's voice softened whenever he spoke to Fatima, how his eyes lingered when the girl smiled. Jealousy began to take root. For 7 years, Aurora had been married without a child. Fear haunted her every day, the fear that her husband would replace her. And now, with this young, beautiful girl under their roof, that fear grew into fire. Aurora's smile tightened. Her tone sharpened. She tried to convince herself she was only imagining things. But deep inside, she was certain. If things continued this way, Fatima would soon take her place. One evening, Aurora sat in her friend Stella's living room, her face heavy with worry. Stella leaned closer, her voice sharp like a knife. "Aurora, you better shine your eye. That girl, Fatima, is a danger. Can't you see how your husband looks at her? One day, he will get her pregnant, and when that happens, he will throw you out. Remember, you've been married for 7 years without giving him a child. If Fatima gives him one, your place will be gone." The words pierced Aurora's heart like poison. She tried to shake them off, but Stella's warning echoed in her mind. That night, as Aurora lay beside Dio, she stared into the darkness, her fists clenched. "I can't let this happen," she whispered to herself. From that moment, her heart hardened against Fatima. Every little thing she did became a fault. If Fatima washed the dishes, Aurora complained they were dirty. If she ate in the house, Aurora complained that she was eating too much. Even for something as little as not putting a glass cup back in the right shift brought shouts and insults. "Useless girl! Do you think this is your father's house?" Aurora would yell. Fatima's eyes filled with tears, but she swallowed her pain. She didn't want to cause trouble. One evening, Dio noticed his wife's coldness. "Aurora," he said gently, "why are you treating Fatima this way?" "She's only a child instead of softening," Aurora flared. "Do you think I'm blind, Dio? I see the way you look at her. Don't think I don't know what's going on. You're having an affair with her, aren't you?" Dio's jaw dropped. "What? How can you say that? She's young enough to be my daughter. I only want to help her, nothing more." But Aurora refused to listen. Jealousy had taken over her heart. The house that once felt like a blessing for Fatima became a place of torment. She couldn't breathe without Aurora's sharp eyes following her. She couldn't smile without being accused. Each day, Aurora's hatred grew. One afternoon, as Dio traveled for one of his business trips, Aurora struck. She called Fatima into the living room, her face cold and hard. "You thief!" Aurora shouted, holding up an empty jewelry box. "Where are my necklaces? Where are my earrings? Don't pretend you don't know. First my husband, now my things." Fatima's hands shook. "Auntie, I swear, I didn't touch your jewelry. I would never—" "Enough!" Aurora screamed. "Get out of my house before I call the police. Pack your things and leave." Fatima dropped to her knees, begging, "Please, Auntie, I have nowhere to go." But Aurora's heart was locked with jealousy. She grabbed Fatima's small bag and threw her out of the house. That night, Fatima found herself back on the cold streets of Lagos. She had no money, no food, nowhere to lay her head. The noise of cars and voices around her seemed louder than ever. She sat by the roadside, her tears mixing with dust. But Fatima was not one to give up. The next morning, she went to the market and began helping people carry groceries. Some customers gave her 200 naira. It wasn't much, but it was something. For weeks, she worked like that, saving every naira she could. Soon, she had enough to rent a tiny one-room apartment in a Face Me I Face You compound. The room was small, hot, and crowded with neighbors on every side. But to Fatima, it was better than the street. She bought a small pot and began making zobo drinks to sell. With her bucket balanced carefully, she walked to markets and bus stops, shouting, "Zobo! Fresh cold zobo!" At first, business was slow. But little by little, people began to love her drink. They said it was sweeter and fresher than any other zobo they had tasted. Her bucket was always empty before the day ended. She became known in the market as Fatima Zobo. Yet even as her business grew, her dream of school never left her heart. Each time she counted her money, she set some aside. After months of saving, Fatima enrolled into a secondary school. She was older than many of her classmates, but she didn't care. Her determination was stronger than her shame. During the day, she wore her uniform and studied. After school, she would dress in her usual abaya and hijab, lift her zobo bucket, and go to the streets to sell. It was hard, but her spirit refused to break. Years passed. Fatima completed secondary school. Her zobo business grew so big that she opened a small shop and even hired a salesgirl to help her. She became both a student and a businesswoman. And then, the miracle came. She received admission into the University of Lagos to study medicine and surgery. The dream that once seemed impossible was now in her hands. Fatima cried the day she held her admission letter. She thought of her father who had wanted her to marry. She thought of Aurora who had thrown her into the street. She thought of all the nights she had gone hungry. Now, her dream of becoming a medical doctor was finally coming to pass. Fatima poured herself into her studies with relentless dedication. From the classroom to the library, she spent her days and nights learning, working as though everything depended on her, and praying as though everything depended on God. Her lecturers praised her discipline, and her coursemates respected her determination. 6 years later, all her effort bore fruit. Fatima graduated with distinction in medicine and surgery. Once she was nothing more than a poor girl from Kano, who ran away from home and chose school over marriage. But now, she is Dr. Fatima, working in one of the largest hospitals in Lagos. Yet, despite her success, her heart often felt heavy. She missed her family deeply. 9 years had passed since she had last seen them. Many times she had written letters, but no reply ever came. Still, she prayed for them every night. That morning began like every other. Fatima woke early, tied her hair neatly, and put on her white doctor's coat. With her small lunch bag in hand, she walked into her office and began flipping through patient files. Suddenly, a nurse rushed in. "Dr. Fatima!" "Emergency. A man has been shot by armed robbers. He is losing blood fast." Without hesitation, Fatima grabbed her stethoscope and hurried to the emergency ward. Her heart pounded with every step. But as she entered the room and saw the man lying on the stretcher, her world froze. Her hands trembled. Her lips parted. But no words came out. It was her father. The same man who once told her that a woman's place was only in the kitchen now lay weak, bleeding, and close to death. Tears filled her eyes, but she forced herself to remain steady. "Scissors! Bandage! More pressure here," she ordered. For hours she worked tirelessly, her hands firm though her heart raced. The bullet had lodged dangerously close to his heart. With precise skill, Fatima removed it and stitched the wound. All the while she prayed silently. "Oh Allah, please don't let my father die." At last, the monitors showed signs of improvement. Fatima exhaled in relief. The operation was successful. Hours later, her father stirred. Slowly, he opened his eyes, and the first face he saw was Fatima's. He blinked, almost disbelieving. "Fatima," he whispered, his voice faint. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in his life, Abubakar felt the crushing weight of his mistakes. The daughter he had rejected, the daughter he once called useless, was the one who had saved him from death. His lips quivered. "My daughter, forgive me. I thought sending you to school was a waste. But today, you saved my life. Please, forgive me." Fatima broke into sobs. She held his hand gently and whispered, "Baba, I forgive you. I never hated you. I only wanted to make you proud." Days later, the news of the accident reached Kano. Her mother, Aisha, and her younger brother, Aman, rushed to Lagos. When Aisha walked into the hospital and saw her daughter standing there in a doctor's coat, she froze. Her knees grew weak, and tears poured down her face. "Fatima, my child, my daughter. I failed you. I didn't believe in you. Please, forgive me." Fatima rushed into her mother's arms, holding her tightly. "Mama, I forgive you too," she whispered. And in that moment, years of pain melted away. The day finally came when Fatima's father was discharged from the hospital. Walking carefully beside him, she supported his steps as they made their way home. But when they reached her gate, everyone froze. The building stood tall and proud, its white walls gleaming in the sun. Flowers were neatly arranged across the compound, and large windows shone brightly. It was nothing like the simple homes they had known in Kano. Ahman gasped, his eyes wide in amazement. "This is not a house," he exclaimed. "This is a mansion." Fatima laughed softly, though her eyes brimmed with tears. She looked at her family and whispered, "Ahman, this was just a house. But today, it is a home, because my family is here with me." Later that day, after they had settled in, the family gathered in the spacious sitting room. They shared rice and stew prepared by Fatima's housekeeper. Laughter slowly returned, filling the walls with warmth. For the first time in years, they felt whole again. But in the midst of their meal, the door opened. A tall, dark-skinned man stepped in, his smile calm and steady. His name was Paul, a senior consultant at the teaching hospital where Fatima worked. Aisha looked at him curiously. "How are you, Baba? I heard what happened." Paul bowed respectfully. "My name is Paul. I work with your daughter, Fatima. For a long time I have asked her to be my wife, but she always refused." Surprise swept across the room. All eyes turned to Fatima. She blushed, lowering her gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. "I refused because I wanted my family's blessing first. I wanted to stand before you with pride, not shame. Today God has given me back my family. Now, I am no longer afraid." Her father's eyes glistened with emotion. Slowly, he reached for her hand. His voice trembled as he spoke. "My child, I rejected you when you needed me most. I believed your place was only in the kitchen. I thought sending you to school was a waste. But today I see the truth with my own eyes. You saved my life. You built this home. You are proof that education is never wasted. If this man truly loves you, then I give my blessing." Tears streamed down Fatima's face as she nodded. Her mother held her other hand, whispering, "I am proud of you, my daughter." That night, they sat together in the sitting room, sharing memories long buried. Abubakar promised he would never again look down on a girl's education. Aisha admitted she had been too weak to defend her daughter, but vowed she would always stand by her now. And Ahman, inspired by all he had witnessed, declared that he would become a strong voice for women's education. With tears in his eyes, he whispered, "The stone the builders rejected has now become the chief cornerstone." Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We love to hear your thoughts and comment below. If you enjoyed this story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching, and stay blessed.